Welcome, everybody. What's going on, everybody? I am King Ruler of Post-Traumatic Hood Disorder, better known as Heal PTHD. PTHD is a real thing, Baba. I don't know if you know, but a lot of people don't know that PTHD is a real thing. And we call it post-traumatic hood disorder for a reason, because in the hood, there's a lot of dysfunctions that we live with every day that does not get categorized as it should. Like today's topic. Today's topic is called Beyond the Bars. We want to go beyond what people see, particularly those that have never spent time behind bars, thinking that they can do time behind bars because they big homies is telling them what that's supposed to be and what you're supposed to be when you get out, and what kind of pedigree you're going to have if you go through that. I don't like to use the word street cred because it sounds like some corny white stuff, but at the same time, it is a version of that, right? Like, you get out and you think that you are this super dude because you spent time behind bars because of what the street reputation is of jail. But we want to go beyond the bars, and we're going to get real deep about what this is with somebody. His name is Eric McKenith, and he spent 26 years behind bars in a federal prison where they don't give a whole lot of time off, but you usually got to do a majority of your sentence. It ain't a lot of good behavior getting you out of a federal prison. I have a lot of homies who went. One of my boys, he spent 21 years in feds. He got out about like 4 or 5 years ago. He left in 97, I think it was. So I got a bunch of homies like that. I got a nephew. He just got out from doing like a 5-year bid, but he did a 3-year bid in state before that. So they was finna let him out of the state. Oh no, you got this gun charge over here, homie, and took him into the feds. So it's a thing, man, to where these kids thinking that they can just do whatever they want. They ain't scared of prison, but more primarily it's because they don't know what that's like. Ain't nobody in their right mind gonna know what prison is and want to go do that on purpose, right? So we're gonna dig a little bit deeper with Eric McKenith. Now, Eric McKenith, he's a prison prevention specialist, and we're going to get into that to see what that's about. Motivational speaker, life and wellness coach. So I'm taking it that you're doing the work with the people, trying to prevent them from repeating your cycle, so to speak. Is that what that specialist is about?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like really just catching them before they fall into the hands of the system. And also, I work with those who've already been in the system, but primarily, I'm trying to keep young men, young black men, particularly, out of prison, out of juvenile hall, out of just really falling into the hands of the system. And because once they catch you in that system, it's like a cycle. It's hard to get out once they get you in. So I'm trying to prevent them from going to prison, and also trying to help them redirect their visions, outside of what they see in the neighborhoods and their environments. I'm trying to give them new vision and new hope. Yes.
Let's dive deep into this. What was the thing that got you landed in prison in the first place?
My federal bid. My federal bid. Yeah. Armed bank robbery. In the early '90s, you from California, and so in the early '90s, bank robbery hit the neighborhoods. It's a few different neighborhoods in California that was robbing banks, and my neighborhood was one of them. I got caught up in that, robbing banks and hitting licks and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And they gave you 26 for that. Was that your first offense?
No. I originally got 84 years.
What?
I went to trial myself, my co-defendant, David Jones, Babyfish, rest in peace. We went to trial, and also another co-defendant of ours, Cal Tongue Wayne England. We went to trial, and one of my co-defendants, Wayne England, he ended up getting found guilty of one bank robbery, and they gave him like 12 years. But myself and David Jones, we got found guilty of all counts, and they ended up giving us 84 years. And what happened is that on top of each bank robbery, they had a 924C statute, which is using and carrying a firearm in the commission of crime. And back in 1996, 97, when we got sentenced, the statute read that you get 5 years for the first one and 20 for each additional. So we got 65 years just for having a firearm in the commission of a crime, on top of the 14 years we got for the actual armed bank robberies and the 5 years for conspiracy to commit bank robbery. So what happened in 2018 is Donald Trump signed the First Step Act, which says you can't stack those guns on an individual and sentence them to all that time. You are only sentenced them to one 924C, which was what Congress intended in the beginning. That statute basically is like, if I committed an armed bank robbery, I got 5 years for the gun and whatever they gave me for the bank robbery. And if I got out and committed that same crime, then you can enhance me 20 additional years. It wasn't meant to stack them on us like that. So when we entered the system back in 95, we got a sentence in 97, the statute was like 5 years, 20, 20, 20, and they stacked them against us. And now you can't do it. So in 2018, Donald Trump signed the First Step Act, which was headed by Vance Jones and a few other groups fighting for their loved ones in prison and whatnot. And Donald Trump signed off on it. And by the grace of God, by that time, I was already on the right path. I wasn't getting in trouble. So the warden signed off on it for me, allowed it to go back to the court system, and the courts granted my motion that filed by my attorney, and they reduced my sentence from 84 years to 30 years. So 2021, I was released. And like I say, by the grace of God, I'm out here, I'm breathing, and I'm here talking to you, brother.
84 years. I know when you heard that, your whole
man,
your light flashed before your eyes, huh?
Yeah. So with the federal system, they sentence you in months. So they gave me 968 months. And I looked at my attorney, I was like, 968 months, like how much time is that? And he wrote it on the paper, 84 years, and it was like, wow. But I didn't believe it. And for a long time, I didn't believe it until I started losing my appeals and, all that. Then it started settling in a little more. I kept hope, but at the same time, it's like, dang, it's getting darker and darker. You hoping for a little sunlight, but it started getting darker and darker into 2018,
Let's talk about this. This is where it all starts. Before that crime happened, like you said, there were hoods just doing that. So that means like you were in the hood at the time doing your thing?
Yeah, I was in the hood doing my thing, gang banging and, living that lifestyle that really, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just a lifestyle that like, it wasn't worth it. It was foolish. And I was led to believe that was the lifestyle, that was what was up, but really it wasn't what was up, So listening to the big homies and everything, and that was the life back then. That's what we glamorized back then, but it was the wrong thing to glamorize,
Man, I can't even tell you. The only reason that I got saved from it is because my cousin was a G. I grew up in the 30s.
Okay.
So my cousin was a G from the 30s named Big Psycho. And they was gonna put me on one day and he stopped them.
Okay.
He was like, leave him alone. This ain't for him. But back then I was like a little square hooper, skateboard, and I wasn't into none of that stuff. But they were gonna try to put me on anyway because I knew everybody in the neighborhoods. They was like, "They're gonna put me on." He was like, "Nah, leave him alone." 3 or 4 months later, he got AK'd up and killed by some homies in the hood.
Wow.
So um, that point for me, I was like, for sure, we ain't doing this one. That don't
Yeah.
make sense. So I'm like 10, 11 years old at the time. So you was in the streets. So basically, was anybody trying to prevent you from that life, like trying to deter you or steer you away from it, or you just was hard headed? What was the story?
Now, what's crazy is, so I grew up like, I ended up representing Avalon over there on Avalon and 40th, but I grew up in Jordan Down Projects in Watts.
Mm,
For the
okay.
longest, man, those young baby lokes in Grape Streets, they was really trying to put me on the hood and all that, but I prevented it. I'm like, I'm cool, you know what I'm saying, for the longest. And I'm growing up in a single parent home, my mother, and it's just me and her because I'm her only child, so
Mm,
I'm ducking it for a long time, and it came to a point where they would jump on me sometime, and I fight back, but then my mother got tired of that, and so she was like, you know what, I'm moving you from over here. I'm getting you out of this environment. But what happened is she moved me on 48th and Avalon, and
mm,
when we moved over there, it's just like, instead of the peer pressure of what I was dealing with in Watts, the young dudes over there was like embracing me, like, come mess with us, boo. And it was a different approach to where I got sucked into that. These are my brothers, you know what I'm saying? These are my brothers. I don't got no brothers and sisters at home, so these are my brothers. I'm hanging out with these guys, and we having fun at first until it got serious. It was
yeah.
fun at first, and then it got serious. And I'm mostly to blame because I had opportunities. I had an uncle lived in Mission Viejo, California. Um,
Yeah.
had me out there with him for a minute, but my mind was already set on what I was seeing in the community, to where I was already fascinated by what my environment showed me. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to become. A lot of times, like, we don't have choices, but we do. I
Mm-hmm.
had a choice, but I chose to be there in that environment. You know what I'm saying? And that environment, man, just led me to just becoming more and more active, more and more who I wasn't, but who I was becoming. Innately, Eric was a good kid, a mama's boy. My mama spoiled the hell out of me. But I practiced being this gang member in this neighborhood because that's where I was at. That was my environment, and I became good at it. So, I became one of them,
Yeah.
where I was menacing and just doing everything they was doing, and I was going extra hard because I didn't grow up over there. So that even made me go extra hard and made me try to prove that I belong. You know what I'm saying? When, like, and it was under the influence of, damn, the homie, wow, the homie with it. That false, what do you call it? That false
Acceptance. False.
acceptance, but also motivating you and pumping you up to believe that you just this big individual in the neighborhood. Like that, how the homies got a way of just pumping you up, psyching you
Yeah.
up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
to that BS because I didn't know no better then, and that's where I felt loved and home, and that was home. But I didn't know what it was leading me to for real. For real, it was like, dang, So that's kind of like my story, like in regards to how I became affiliated with the homies, and I could have prevented it because I had other options, but that's something I wanted to do at the time.
Mm. You said a key word that was a part of my next question because I have like I said, I got a lot of friends that went through that process. I have one of my oldest friends of all time. I've seen him transform into that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Matter of
Yeah.
fact, his father was from Avalon, a G from
Okay. Okay.
Avalon. So he became a part of the 30s because that's where we lived, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
saw him transform into that. And it's like almost, you said it a few minutes ago again, it's like you have something to prove that you really don't have to prove to anybody. Like none of these people on the block are worth you proving how much you are willing to risk your life for something you really don't own.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like everybody on the mama paying rent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like y'all can be in a new hood tomorrow. You can be from Thursday and over in the Hoovers next day, but you
Yeah.
gonna switch. Like what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that prove thing, because a lot of cats today, they feel the same way. They gotta prove something. It's like a cycle that repeats. It's like
Absolutely.
that proving thing is like the bait that they dangle. You gotta prove yourself worthy of being
Mm-hmm.
from this neighborhood. And how do you prove it? You gotta
Mm-hmm.
go do the work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do
And
you
it's
feel like
crazy. No, no, yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy because it's sad, but as black men, period, we always trying to prove ourselves one way or another.
yeah,
Whether it's
for
in the
sure.
neighborhood, whether it's in the
Yeah.
workplace, we always trying to prove ourselves, and for what? You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to the neighborhood, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, we don't own nothing over there. And I think that was the most foolish thing that I've ever done in my life. But it goes back to, and that's why I do the work, because no one was telling me the truth back then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
truth
Yeah.
was that this was a whole bunch of bullshit. And we really destroying each other as young black men. We destroying ourselves, each other, tearing down our communities, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth.
Mm-hmm. That's the
But
truth.
they want to give us, man, you got to go over there. That's the enemy. How is he the enemy? He's black just like I'm black. You know what I'm saying? What makes him the enemy? But we don't question that as we're young, because it's like, okay, he got on red, or he from over here, the Hoovers, or the, you know what I'm saying, the full trades or whatnot. So he the enemy. He's not the enemy. What
Yeah.
makes him the enemy? Because like you just said, if he grew up right here on 40th and Avalon, he'll be the homie. Or if I
Exactly.
grew up here on 43rd and Avalon, he'll be the homie. So what makes him the enemy? You know,
Just because different block.
just different blocks. And because we was told that the big homies told us he was the enemy, or he may have, we probably got along with you 2 weeks ago, but just because one of the homies got into with you over some nonsense, now you
Mm-hmm.
my enemy.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You my enemy. And it's all, man, I think that was the most foolish, most ignorant thing that I've ever done. And when I look back on that, it's like, wow, what were you thinking?
Let's dive deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to do me a favor.
Yes,
I
sir.
want you to think back to the day that the judge slammed the gavel after sentencing you to all those years, and you got transported to wherever you was going to be housed at, and you finally made it to that cell, and they closed the door behind you. Do me a favor, and this is not just for me. This is for anybody listening um, to this podcast. Describe that first night for me. Like after hearing that cell shut, what went through your mind?
The crazy thing about it is this is home. Like, like, and a lot of times and not just that night, a lot of times I sat in that cell and like, damn, I can't believe they tricked me like this. Like, like this is this is what my life come to. You know, just to sell, and being surrounded by men that's really like, you create relationships as far as camaraderie with some guys in prison, but at the same time, it's like, I just bet you over a cold bowl of soup. I may know you a couple dudes from the streets. I may have heard from you, but at the end of the day, like, this is what my life is. Like it it makes you really think like wow, like I just fucked my life off for real. Especially when you got the 84 years. Because like I told you, I've been to juvenile, I've been to state prison,
Mm-hmm.
and I had daylight. But to
Yeah.
get 84 years, it's like damn, what was you thinking? Like you had that self-talk with yourself, like
Mm.
thinking. But then
Mm.
just as quick as you having this self-thought, self-talk to yourself, the next morning come and you got to put on that mask again. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Because this is your environment you currently living in, and you got to put on that mask. You can't let nobody see you sweating. You got, you know what I'm saying? And it's a messed up life because a lot of times you really like that song Masquerade is like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you really don't want to live your life every day walking around with a chip on your shoulder, but the
Yeah.
environment makes you live like that. You're always on the edge, especially in the feds, because what happens in on the East Coast could trickle back down to the West Coast if the homies get into there. So you always on alert. You always living on edge. You know what I'm saying? And that ain't the type of life that you want to live. But when them doors close at night, like my favorite time of the day was lockdown. You
Mm.
know, and even though like I had a little name for myself in the feds, a lot of the homies and a lot of people knew who I was because we had a lot of time. And me and my co-defendant, I was Lil Fish from Avalon at the time, and myself and Babyfish was co-defendants. We was like this. Babyfish ended up getting killed in Victorville in 2006 in December. You know, that took a lot of out of me in itself. But prior to that, it's like, you know, you really gotta just keep your face on every day because this is your environment, this is home, and you don't want, you know what I'm saying, nobody to, you know, violate you, or you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of things that happen in prison that, you know, you gotta always be on point. So it ain't a good life to live at the end of the day, you know. And going back to what I was just gonna say, my favorite time was lockdown. Because
Mm.
when I'm able to go in that cell at nighttime and I made it through a day,
Mm-hmm.
able to take my boots off
Mm-hmm.
and relax just for a few hours through the night, that was my favorite time, man. Because it ain't no relaxing when you walk in that yard throughout the day. It ain't no relaxing. You always on because you don't know when the next riot coming. You don't know when the next whatever's coming, and you got to be on point. And that's a, you know, it ain't an easy life to live. You know, I survived it, you know, by the grace of God, you know. But yeah, man, whenever I can kick my boots off and just lay back at night, sometime when morning time came, I just be like, I wish I could just lay there, you know, for a few more hours. But it's putting your boots back on, strapping up, and ready to accept whatever the day may bring, because you don't know what the day gonna bring.
Mm. We're gonna go a little deeper.
Yes, sir.
Now this is because remember this thing is about trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this falsehood. Even the thing you're saying with the mask idea, um, even the mask idea, it prevents a person from feeling what they feel because you're not allowed to feel it too long, at least before you got to put the mask on. But what I'm going to ask you is this: was there a time, and I'm sure there was, but I want to hear your honest answer to this. Was there a time where you really truly felt afraid?
I think when my co-defendant got killed, um, that's when it hit so close to home. And I don't just want to say he was my co-defendant because he was my brother, you know. And for the first time, for the first time in my life, I was afraid, and it was just afraid. Not Let me get this correct. It was afraid, like damn. my best friend just died in prison. I was afraid to die in prison after that.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, I fought. I did what I had to do to survive. Carried and worked that burner, that knife, you know, as a part of survival in prison.
mhm,
But keeping it real, like when that happened, and to hear that he was off the count and that he had died, mind you, I was a part of that riot that happened. He
mm,
just he ended up falling short in that riot. And that right there was the wake up call. Like, damn, do I want to die in prison? That's when I was scared. And it's only one other thing that I was afraid of, and I was losing my mother in prison. And crazy thing about it is my co-defendant lost his mother in prison when we was in Lompoc. And to see what he went through when he lost his mother, that was the first time I became afraid, saying I was afraid to experience what he experienced by losing his mother in prison. And then when he died, that was my
mm.
second time of fear, and that was myself dying in prison. And I prayed, God, I don't want to die in prison. Let me see my mother again. Say that I
Yeah.
was afraid.
Yeah, it's just like when people go, they come out, they act like they just super tough and act like they just went through it all. They wasn't afraid a day in prison. That whole mask, that whole face, right? Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
uh, it's amazing how you gotta act like you're not afraid. I will never believe. I say this all the time since I started this podcast, that me knowing the people that I grew up with, from throwing baseball and throwing footballs in the street and playing at the playground and the parks and stuff and kicking it when we was kids, that transformed into gang members. Y'all wasn't that when we was doing that. Y'all changed
Yeah,
into later
yeah.
on, like junior high, later on, middle
Hmm.
school. Y'all went into that. Y'all wasn't
Hmm.
at it in fourth grade though. I mean, like that's
Yeah,
not something who you are. That's something
no,
who you became. And there's
yeah,
no way you can tell me that you wasn't afraid when you hear this judge tell you got 25, 30, 40, 50 years and you will never see your loved ones again outside of a glass.
yeah, yeah.
Like, you had to be afraid. And I know there was too many stories within there. But jail is a very violent place, as you know better than me.
Hmm.
I spent just a couple of months in a county jail. That was enough for me.
Yeah,
LA County, oh, that
yeah.
was
Oh no, the LA County ain't nothing for you. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I've been there, done that. The LA County ain't no joke. Yeah,
man, that was so cool. Like, I ain't nothing in here worth
yeah,
me coming to his place again.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And you know what's crazy? Really, like I mentioned, I went to juvenile CYA, but when
mhm,
I went to Chino for the first time, and I seen them 3 tiers,
mm.
I was nervous then. I was 18 years old, and I'll never forget. I looked up there, the 3 tiers. I like, God, please don't let them put me up there. Because I had seen Chino in the movies, and I also, heard the homies talk about Chino, and how the homies always try to motivate you and tell you like you'll be all right. You from the hood, going there, you do this, you do that, whoop. But man, when I hit Chino, that was the pen for the first time. I was like, like Lord, what I'm saying. And I always like, I'm not afraid to admit, I come from a Christian background. As you grow through life, you start experiencing with other religions and tapping into other, I didn't tap into all of them. I respect all religions, but I say that to say every time in a moment of doubt or a moment of nervousness, first person I say, like, God, please, please, like, protect me. I'm not afraid to say, protect me,
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, no doubt.
yeah. So, would you categorize your 26-year stay in that prison as traumatizing? Is that would you say that's trauma that you experienced there?
I definitely experienced trauma, you know, because of the stuff that I witnessed, the stuff that I went through, you
Mm-hmm.
know, stuff that still haunts me today.
Mm.
Mm, Mainly, you know, the situation with my best friend dying, you
Mm.
know, that haunts me today because even though I'm free, it's still bittersweet because he's not home with me. He's supposed to be here with me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah.
that's something that I experience, more often than none. And I have to snap out and snap back and realize that he'll be happy for me living my life out here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that experience right there was probably the most traumatic. And not, and then when you get off into all the solitary confinement time that I've done, you
Mm.
know,
How many
being
have you done? How much time have you done in solitary?
well, I did almost 7 years in USP Marion. And USP Marion was a lockdown facility where you was locked in your cell 22 and a half hours a day. And no, sorry. 21 and a half hours a day. And then you were out for 2.5 hours to shower, do push-ups on the range, pull-ups and dips on the range. Everything was on just like a 50-yard, oh no, I'll say 25-yard range. So everything you did was just on that tier. And I did almost 7 years in USP Marion, and that was, you have ADX, which is Supermax in the federal system, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have USP Marion, which is one step below ADX. And yeah, I did a chunk in USP Marion, but even though that time, just to hear it, like, wow, like, that's unbelievable, but those were the most transformative years of my bid, because being locked down as much as I was able to read and I was able to discover who I was as a man. You know what I'm saying? And I stayed reading, I stayed meditating and stayed learning, man. And that right there was what I needed. And not only that, but going back to what I was telling you, lockdown was always my favorite time of the day. So there, I didn't really have to worry about a lot of the BS that you do on the main line. The most you
Mm.
have to worry about is little altercations within your tier every
Mm-hmm.
now and then. And most of that was self-checking the homies for not being respectful on this tier. You know what I'm saying? Because the tier was so respectful. So if you got a homie that's making noise or doing whatever he's doing that's disrespecting the tier, then you would check him, and sometimes it got physical, you know. But other than that, man, USP Marion really, really allowed me to really become the man that I was. So when I got back out on the main line, I was already moving different, thinking different. Even my co-defendant, he used to tell the homies like, "Dang, the homie that got weird." But it's not that I got. It's just that I had got wiser. I wasn't
Yeah. Yeah.
sagging. I wasn't using the N word no more. I wasn't calling our sisters bees no more. And I stayed with a book. You know, I stayed with a book. I was still active, but at the same time, I was different. You know.
What have you done to treat yourself for that trauma? How have you treated that?
That's a good question because even my girl that I'm with now tells me sometimes, "Do you think we should get you a counselor just so you can talk?"
Yeah.
Because I tend to still shut down every now and then. I'll shut down and I get it to my own, and she asks me what's the matter, and I, I tell her nothing. It's rare that I really just open up and just talk about really what's going on in my mind. You know what I'm saying? She's been privy to that on occasions, but a lot of times it's like I'm just really just trying to just deal with it and believe that in time, it's gonna get better. You know, it's gonna get better. So that's what I do, man. And I go to church. I go to church. I missed this Sunday for the first time in a long time, but I got a church home out here, and I go to church every Sunday, and I got a good pastor who don't judge, and really he's become a friend that I can confide in when I need to. So
Mm.
yeah.
Well, let me extend the offer, brother. We from LA. If you ever need somebody to talk to, you can always call me. This is what I deal with, brother. I deal with this trauma stuff heavy. Um,
Okay. Yes, sir.
so if you ever need that, you can always reach out, see what's up. That's what's shutting you down. The trauma is shutting you down. It's like the memories alone of a trauma will make a person freeze, right? And it'll make you either freeze or it'll make you respond in another way that will push everybody around you away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real thing. That's why I asked you that, because anybody who goes through that experience of just being locked up, um, first of all, just being locked up is traumatizing. Someone telling you that you can't go somewhere
Mm-hmm.
when you want or need to go somewhere because they say so is traumatizing. I don't care if it's a kidnapping or if it's a prison sentence. It's
Mm-hmm.
traumatizing, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so you definitely need to take your woman up on that concept and go. That's how I even came up with this PTHD, bro. Like, um, I was coming through some stuff that I kept seeing in my life that was repeating. And you grow up in LA, you're gonna grow up angry. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
want to fight people. You're gonna have that anger gene in you, and
Yeah.
you're gonna tend
Absolutely.
to take that concept wherever you go. Now, it
Yeah.
may have worked out. It may have worked well. It may work well in prison because you got to be that face has to be on because that's that environment. But in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship, that ain't the environment, right? So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to learn how to shift that, and I didn't know how to shift that at the time. I didn't know
Okay.
how to turn that off. So it became a thing for me that when I was in a therapy session, some told me to just go get therapy out of the blue. We don't go get therapy, especially black men. I just went across the street from the barbershop, went, sat down with this lady, talked my life out. And when I put it on the table, I was like, this stuff ain't normal. Like, because I had never heard it. Nobody speaks it to you. So I
Yeah.
had never heard it. And I was like, the fact that you lose so many people have gone to jail and left and died and got AK'd up and all of
Mm-hmm.
these things. Like
Mm-hmm.
these things are not normal.
No.
So I didn't know how to put it all together. That's what made me create this podcast now to talk about these things, like what we're talking about. Again, we're talking about beyond the bars today, y'all, so we can let people know what the truth is beyond the bars, from the other side of the bars, from a person who has spent 26 years of his life behind those bars. Let me ask you this, bro. How did this affect your loved ones outside while you was in there? How did that affect them? Do you know?
My mother. I told you I was her only child. I am her only child. And she's
Mm-hmm.
still here today. I just recently moved her out here to Atlanta with me. But just 2 months ago, she was over here at our house, and I'm talking to her, and we have a good time when we're together. But I started noticing some things
Mm-hmm.
that I knew, but I was scared to or afraid to face.
Mm-hmm.
That my situation really took a toll on my mother. It aged her tremendously. Um, she had a couple strokes, nervous breakdowns,
Mm-hmm.
just dealing with her son never getting coming home, because at that time it's like he's never coming home with 84 years. She was missing me. Um, and a lot that she goes through today with her illnesses, you know, um, come from my
That's
incarceration.
crazy.
She's schizophrenic now from being, afraid. When I left the house, she was no longer safe Because when I was there, she knew she was safe. We in the hood, she's safe. But after
Mhm.
I left, she didn't feel that security. Yes, she had a husband and she still has a husband, but it wasn't nothing like, you know, her son protecting her because she knew I knew everybody in the hood and that was my hood. So she started going through that, thinking she hearing people in the backyard and just different little things, man. And then, you know, she became this extreme hoarder because they said people when they missing loved ones, they buy things and just start getting unnecessary things they don't need.
Yeah.
And when I moved her from California, brother, when I tell you she could have opened up a store,
Mm.
all the unused, still in the package stuff that she had
Mm.
behind her buying by out of missing me, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous, man. And that was a part of my situation affecting her, the trauma that she dealt with by her only child being incarcerated,
Yeah.
you know. So and I was just looking at her like I say 2 months ago, and I just had to go upstairs and I broke down, man, because if it's one thing I regret is that, or what I regret most is what I put my mother through.
Again, this is another reason to go get the help to talk this out. Because remember, man, your mind is recording all of this stuff. Like, I know you're strong. I know that you got it, but the mind doesn't know what you think you feel, right? The
Yeah.
mind only records what you see, what you experience, and it will begin to erode. You have to let it out. This is why I do this podcast. I don't know if you've ever sat down and talked to somebody about this before and let it out like this before, but
Yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
it more often.
Yeah,
Do it.
I don't normally do it, but you know, it's just one of those things, man. Like, especially you providing a platform to talk about this stuff, it makes you more comfortable to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? And sure, we barely met, but it's just the energy and what you bring to the table make me feel comfortable with talking about it. You know, so yeah,
I say, bro. I say, bro. Appreciate that.
absolutely.
So let's shed some new light on this. You've been free 19 months, right?
Yes, sir.
Um, so how has that transition been? I know 26 years ago, this was a whole different world. Tupac had just got shot. Biggie was still alive. It was a
Yeah,
lot going on back then, right? Uh,
absolutely.
so how has this transition to freedom been for you psychologically? How have you been adjusting to it?
I've adjusted. I've adjusted well, surprisingly well. It's times when my girl, my peoples look at me and like, we can't even tell you've been in prison. Like, and then my girl always say like, you don't even think about prison no more, huh? And it's not that I don't think about it. It's just that I'm trying to move on with my life. I have a couple brothers that I look out for, that that's of the same mindset that I'm on right now, and I look out for them, and a couple of them are lifers,
Mm,
but I got to do my due diligence that because I know what they're going through, and I was been there and done that in their shoes. But in regards to adjusting, man, the hardest thing was just learning how to work my iPhone, to be honest. If you learn how to work that, then everything else is easy. I can Google everything else I need to know. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but yeah, I said it took me probably only about 3-4 months. Now don't get me wrong, it's times where that I go through things, and it's times that some days become overwhelming. Um, like I was speaking to you before, like when you get these bills, they keep coming and coming. You're like, oh, is it? You ain't got to worry about all that.
Sorry about that, Ted.
No, but for the most part, man, man, I'm good. I got a great support system. I'm constantly learning every day. I just got into real estate with my lady, and she's teaching me, and I'm moving. I'm moving forward each day at a time. Learning and just really trying to build my foundation and establish myself. I'm walking in my purpose, as I mentioned, speaking to at-risk youth. Um, I just really got offered an opportunity to work with this organization on a salary base. They're gonna train me up in a couple weeks, so I'm gonna be in the streets and talking to at-risk youth and really trying to just bring peace in these streets of Atlanta, man, if I can, because us killing each other and doing harm to each other, it has to stop, man. And a lot of people don't believe that it will ever stop, but I'm one of the ones that's hopeful that it will, and
Mm,
whatever I can do to assist in helping to just stop it or just redirect the vision of these young individuals, these young men, then
mhm.
I'm for it. Can't save them all, but my motto is I'm gonna save as many as I can. That's it. That's all I can do.
There's
Hmm.
a African proverb that says, "It's not a person's stupidity, laziness that causes their problems in life. It's what's deeply rooted in their mind."
Mm.
Right. So when you think about that, this was planted in your mind from the OGs that was pumping you up, that was selling you this trash
Mm-hmm.
of a concept called a hood. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I'm starting to feel my heat bubble up, but I really despise the hood concept. Like
Yeah.
it really bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which leads me to what I'm about to ask you, because it got people like millionaire people like Morant wanting to act like a thug. You
Oh
got
man.
Young Thug already going through his thing out here in Atlanta. These people who have no reason to go in this direction besides the poison that has been planted in their mind, rooted in their mind, that
Mm-hmm.
this is the way to go, just like you were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they
Absolutely.
happen to be millionaires already, right? They don't have to do this, but there's some reason that their mind is choosing because of the root that's in there. What would you say to them right now about prison, based upon, because they're on that road headed to your past, basically? So, what would you say to them right now?
Well, I definitely, hope that they have a whole lot of God in their favor. And I say that in especially regards to Young Thug. I don't know the details of the case. I'm not going to get into the details of the case. But I do know that the federal government, when they want you, they get you. You know what I'm saying? And from what I hear, he's faced with, man. That journey ain't gonna be nice if he gets convicted. Once
Mm,
again, I don't wish conviction on no man. I don't wish any man to go through what I went through because it was a
mm,
long road, brother. However, I just hope that he gets right with God, or and get right with himself, man, and just strap up and get ready for whatever journey he's about to face and learn from it because um, it's not going to be over. It's just how he applies himself going forward, you
yeah,
know. And for John Morant, brother,
brother.
what are you thinking? Like in the position that most young men dream about. A
Exactly.
lot of us would be in the hood if we had your skills. We wouldn't be waving no pistols around if we had your skills. We'll be living our life, We'll be vacationing and just enjoying life, man. Don't nobody want who wants to be a thug with millions? Like who wants to thug life? That come on, man. Enjoy your millions, man. Enjoy your life because you really about to fuck that off. Because one thing about it is them people who give you them big contracts, give you them big endorsements, they'll take them quickly. They don't mind because the next John Morant is coming down the pipeline. So
Exactly.
get it right, brother. Get it right. I'm not hating on you. Get it right, John Morant. Let's go.
Exactly. Would you ever risk it all again? Is there anything worth going back to you?
And outside somebody doing something drastic to my mother, like for real, man, it ain't nothing worth me going back to prison. Especially not nothing of monetary value, you know. Um, I'm out here, grinding, man. I didn't DoorDash since I've been out. I didn't Ubered and I didn't worked a few jobs. And ironically, a former bank robber that I was a luxury security guard for the Gucci outlet, and I was responsible for walking the armor guard to the back to get the
Oh,
money out the safe. I
oh my God.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, and not once did I entertain anything negative in regards to that, man. It's like I I'm not trying to go back to prison, man. It's nothing worth it, man. My freedom is everything to me at this point in my life. At 49 years old, my freedom, my family, man, is everything to me, man. Nothing else matters.
I know you're the prevention specialist. So talk to us about your mission now, post prison. Like, what's your mission now? What are you looking to get accomplished with this newfound freedom? So what are you looking to do with that?
Man, just like do the work, man, and as I mentioned, just really just share my story for the most part because I think there's power in stories.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to share my story because I can't tell you what to do. However, I can share my story with you so that you don't make the mistakes that I made. I was in the streets, I was in the trenches, I was banging and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me down many years in prison. Like I say, from juvenile hall, CYA, state prison, to federal prison, it's been all bad until now. So my mission would be just to really just reach as many of these young men as I can with my story and mentor them if they need, somebody to talk to, somebody to tell them the truth and keep it 100 with them. That's my mission. That's what I want to do, man, because God let me out for a reason. I had 84 years. That
Yes.
sentence was reduced to 30 years. I'm still young. I'm still able to relate to them young men out there.
Mm-hmm.
God has a purpose for me. And I think that purpose is to get out here and do the work, man. Do the work. Talk to these young brothers and let them know the real, let them know the truth.
Yes. How can they find you? How can they find you?
They can definitely hit me Instagram, IG, Eric, ERIC underscore McKenith, McKenith. And Gmail, McKenith Eric at Gmail.
Before we get out of here, we gotta play the game. We have a game that we play with our guests,
Okay.
um, and it's called "How Deep Is Your Hood?" Okay,
Yeah.
that can go multiple ways, knowing where we come from, right? How deep is
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
But we're gonna play this game. So I'm gonna ask you about 5 questions. It's gonna be 2 choices, and you choose which one of those you would rock with the best out of the 2 categories. And we're gonna see how hood you are, how deep your hood actually runs. Okay, is that cool?
Okay. Okay. Good. Let's go.
All right. So first one, number one, Dodge Charger or a Lexus hybrid.
I want to be politically correct. I would go with the hybrid, but man, I like them George Chargers. Every time I go to California, I that's what I rent the Dodge Chargers. Something fast, only because I be wanting to get up out of there if I got to get up out of there.
The number one pulled over car there is a
No,
Dodge.
I already know. I already know.
All right.
I don't own one myself, but yes.
Okay. Number two, Red or blue?
You know what's crazy? This is
What?
crazy.
What?
I come from the blue side. But last year I purchased a 2022 Silverado truck. They had a red one and a blue one on the lot. I chose the red one.
What?
Yes, it just was just sexy, and I'm like, I'm over all them colors. I gotta go and look for that.
Oh my God, that's funny.
When I drove up to my girlfriend's job to ask her, like, what do you think about it? She was like, it's red though. I said, I know, I want it. You know, okay. Let's get it. You know. Mm-hmm.
That is phenomenal. All right, number 3, Snoop Dogg or Common?
Or Common? Oh man, that's a hard choice. Like, only because, like, man, I love Common, man, and his mind.
Mm-hmm.
But then Snoop then stepped his game up so much as far as business wise that I love what he's doing business wise. I love the fact that he broke away from the BS and, like, man, he's a boss. He's a boss now. So I gotta go with Snoop. I gotta go with Snoop.
Okay. Charger, red, Snoop. Just keep it tally. All right. So, number 4. This is a movie reference. Training Day or The Wood?
I'm going with The Wood.
Ah, my brother.
Okay. I'm gonna go with The Wood.
Okay. Yes. That's a good one.
I like that. That's a classic, a nice love story formed from within the hood.
Exactly.
That's what we don't see a lot of, even though we it's bad. It's all bad in the hood, but then we got some good in the hood too. We got some beautiful love stories, you know? Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It ain't all bad, man. It's another side to that story. The hood just gets that rap because it's popularized, but I mean, that gangsterness and that craziness gets popularized, but it's a lot of good in the hood. It's a lot of good.
I agree.
Last one. Respect or humility?
I'm gonna take humility, brother.
I'm gonna
take humility. Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about.
Because a lot of people misinterpret respect and what respect is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I take humility every day, man. Yes, absolutely.
That's it. You got 4 out of the 5, bro. So the hood is still there. We got to work on that a little more.
Yeah. No doubt. Hey, but that's what allows me to go back and talk to these young men, because I could tell them, I understand you, but this is what we need to do. You know what I'm saying? For sure.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Appreciate you, man. This has been fun.
Man, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate that.
Keep sharing your story. Keep doing the work. Again, tell them how they can find you.
Hit me on IG, Eric, ERIC _ McKenith, McKenith. Or you can hit my Gmail at McKenith Eric. That's my name, last name, first name.
I am King Ruler. If you ever need us, just go to healpthd.com. Enroll in one of our packages. You can get some free counseling. You can get some services that will help you to figure out some things and redirect your life and get you on the right path. That's what we're here to do. We appreciate everybody. King Ruler, I'm out. Peace, bro. I appreciate you again.